We have to share, but
What did you say?
people at home. said-
I'm told today that we're on the air. So
Yes, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Rod Bowles. I'm Chair of the Newmarket Budget Committee, and I'm told that we're on the air. So welcome to all of you at home, and welcome to all of you here at the meeting. Both school board members on my right and Budget Committee members on my left. The purpose of this meeting, that the sound has changed inside, so it caught my attention. So this is good? The purpose of this meeting is to review the warrant articles for the school district 2007-2008. And I'll be reading from a draft in front of me, and we'll take them one article at a time, starting with article number 1. Does everybody have a copy of the warrant article? Okay. I'd like to remind everybody that for purposes of this meeting, since we're televised, to please come to the podium and use the microphone. That will allow you to be seen by the television audience as well as to be heard. Thank you. So, article number 1. To see if the school district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,279,200 for the purpose of architectural and engineering fees associated with the expansion of school facilities, and to authorize the issuance of not more than $1,279,200 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA, Chapter 33, and to authorize the school board to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon, and furthermore, to authorize the school district to raise and appropriate the additional sum of $31,109 for the payment of the first year's interest on the bonds or notes authorized by this article. This is recommended by the school board. Three-fifths ballot vote required. And it is noted that the expenditure of this article is contingent upon the purchase of land. Are there questions from the audience?
Why don't I ask the school board just to
Give some background. There are no questions, but would the school board like to give any, pardon? Okay. Thank you.
My name is Deborah Hale, 231 South Main. Tonight I'm here as a concerned taxpayer. My question on Article 1 is, are we putting the cart before the horse, so to speak? Should this either be postponed until a land purchase has been made, or should the verbiage of Article 1 be changed so that funds should be appropriated for the purchase of land instead of paying for an architectural study at this time, especially since the legality of using the $450,000 from open space funds has been questioned?
Thank you. In regard to one of the points that you made about the cart before the horse, if that was the comment, I think to note the parentheses in Article 1. The expenditure of this article is contingent upon the purchase of the land. So it is to go with another warrant article and not be considered separately. One would not happen without the other. Your second point was about there's some question of legality of...
That had been brought up 2 weeks ago, the legality of using open space funds to purchase land for which a building upon which a building will be put. Open space funds, we had heard, are to be used to continue to maintain open space in the community.
Thank you. Are there any legal resources available at this meeting that might be able to talk to that point?
Sure. When the open space warrant article was passed, I want to say 3 years ago, but whenever it was passed, the warrant article explicitly provided that the money could be used to purchase land both for recreation and for school purposes. That was expressed in the terms of the grant of the money. And so in our minds, there's absolutely no question as to the legality of the expenditure of open space money for those purposes.
Are there further questions on that point? The point being the legality of the use of the open space? Yes.
Is the open space?
And if you could, please, if you could state your name and your...
Bob Madej. Are the open space funds associated with Article number 3 or Article number 1?
It's being pointed out that the question that was asked as part of Article 1 is stated in Article number 3. So you're
So
right,
there are
it's
no
part-
open space funds to be used for the purposes of Article number 1.
That's correct, Bob.
That's a good point.
Thank
you. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, so we'll move that down to Article 3. And thank you for addressing the question.
Certainly, Rod.
Are there, would the school board care to speak to Article 1 briefly?
You want me to do it?
Yes, please.
Yeah. The Article 1 reflects really the totally different approach we're taking to the school facilities process this year, where we've, at the recommendation of the Facilities Committee, have adopted a graduated approach where instead of going for the entire facility, we've taken and broken down the process into some pieces, and the first major piece of it being going ahead and appropriating the money necessary to achieve a final design of a potential facility that the community can have input into the process of developing. And then that gives you the advantage of taking those final drawings, going out to get bids from construction contractors. And so with good luck and a following wind, if this passes, on the next year's warrant, you would have the actual bid price with nothing hidden and no estimates, but the actual bid price for the construction process out there on the warrant to give you the clearest and best sense of what the construction of a facility would be. The number that's in this warrant represents 7%, which is kind of the standard architect and engineering fee. And I think this includes the permitting costs also associated with the design of a school facility. And it's 7% of an estimated figure of, I think, $20,600,000. That's going from memory, but it's in that range. This cost, in addition to all other costs, 30% of this cost is reimbursable by the state of New Hampshire. So I think that would net out to $849 some odd $1,000, not including interest, so that would have to get added on. But that's basically the purpose of this article, is to get us a step closer to achieving a final design.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anybody on the Budget Committee side that would care to speak to Article 1? Any other questions on Article 1? I'll read Article 2. To see if the school district will vote to authorize the school board to enter into a long-term lease purchase agreement in the amount of $210,925 payable over a term of 36 months at a rate of $6,349 per month to purchase portable classrooms and appropriate the sum of $76,188 for the first year's payment for that purpose, including the setup of the units. And this is recommended by the school board. And a 3/5 ballot is required. Are there questions? Well, first, let me ask if the school board would like to make any statements in
gonna
regard
ask-
to this article.
I'm going to ask Mr. Ransdell to address this.
Yes, as we began to look at both the immediate needs of our middle high school, as opposed to the more longer needs of our educational community, we currently have a building that last was expanded upon, I believe, with the addition of 2 classrooms, and I could be wrong about the year, but I believe it was like better than 15 years ago when those 2 classrooms were added, and it may have been even into the late 60s. However, the school has increased by about 300 kids since the point that those 2 classrooms were added. So we have an exponential increase in the number of students, which has brought us to an immediate, space crunch and need for expanded space. We currently have 7 staff members without a place that they teach from. They move about on carts, and they take their teaching supplies and materials from room to room. This isn't conducive to the kind of education I know the community of Newmarket wants for its kids, especially when you talk about hands-on activities such as art and things that you can't put an art class on a cart. I mean, we try, we do the best we can with it, I know, but, ultimately, a permanent home is needed, to provide a full education. So in the short term, this is about the lease purchase of 2 buildings, each housing 2 classrooms each, to increase our capacity at the middle high school by 4 classroom spaces. Will not completely solve the issues, but certainly will improve upon the available space, and will also then, once you expand that space a little bit, allows you, as you configure who uses what classrooms, to make some different arrangements based on assumption of use of space. In the back of your packet is, I believe it is the 3rd page, is the cost breakdown on page 1. Am I correct about that? Is it the bonding? And then the back page is the actual classroom diagrams themselves. So you have some information
Thank you.
within your packet, about the details of the costs of these. And in the long term, we will own these buildings, is my understanding. The portables at the elementary school are unfortunately, they were used when we received them, and they have long outlived their usefulness. And when we finish with these at the middle high school, at such point, they can then be moved to the elementary school to meet any needs that we have there as well. So they're a short-term, to address a short-term issue, but they can have a long-term impact as well.
Thank you.
Rod, if I may, to clarify something, the debt schedule that's shown on page 5, is that for the bond or is that for the trailers?
That's for the bond on.
That's for the Article 1 bond.
I apologize, I was incorrect. That's the Article 1 bond.
Just So page 6 shows
6 is
what the trailer
the
layout
trailers.
would look like. Thank you.
For those of you who are at home and watching this on your television set, the handouts are available in the school district office on the 3rd floor of the town hall. And one of 3 other presentations that we have here we saw at the bond hearing, which we have on the side, which is not in your view, but we have a aerial view of this property that is going to be talked about in Article 3, plus a presentation that shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 different areas in town that were considered in this investigation to come up with a solution that would be most beneficial to both the children, the taxpayer, and the community as a whole. So what I'd like to invite all the people watching this program to come on down to the town hall, third floor, take a look at the presentations, and pick up a copy of the draft warrant articles 2007, 2008, which have the presentations attached to the back. Thank you. Are there other questions on Article 2? Any? Yes.
Just a quick question. You said that we got these trailers used over at the elementary school. How old are the trailers now?
The model is 1984, and since we received them from Dover, we're not sure what year they bought them, but when the company came in to review our needs, he indicated that they were 1984, so.
20-odd years.
And we know we've had them for at least 20 years, right?
Right.
Are there? Yes, please, Deb.
Last week, one of the residents inquired about the maintenance for any mobile buildings.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking of
The
the
problem was that the elementary school mobile buildings had not been maintained, because if they are maintained, it can last a very long time. She was speaking of, especially concerning her own family members that lived in mobiles, and I would
Not
like
that he
to add
couldn't.
that I have.
No, I was just thinking if you would just
Have lived in the same double wide mobile for 40 years, and it's in excellent shape because it's been maintained properly.
Another thing to put on the list.
If the town goes ahead with this, that we do appropriate maintenance, because there's no reason that they should not last a good 30, 40, 40, 50 years if they're properly maintained. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there anybody on either the Budget Committee or the School Board Committee side that could talk to the useful life of those used, the length of the useful life of those used trailers that we're talking about retiring?
I think so. I think that it's important to remember that trailers are utilized for different purposes and are therefore built to different standards. A trailer that's going to be used for residential purposes is probably going to be built to a stricter set of specifications and have to conform to a stricter set of codes than a trailer that is the kind of thing you typically would find on a construction site, for example, that is sort of semi-portable and is not intended to be used for residential purposes, maybe doesn't have to meet those stricter standards. I think that what you'll find if you take a look at the trailers that we have behind the elementary school is that they are not of the residential variety. We have been informed by our architects and engineers that they are already far in excess of their useful life, and I wouldn't want to confuse the useful life of a trailer that's built for one set of for one purpose with the useful life of a trailer that is set up for another. I think you also have to take a look. The trailers are in tough shape simply because it's not a question of maintenance. They have simply been beat up through the normal wear and tear of things. They are not so easy to repair as they may appear on the surface. And we do the best we can with them. We feel our children are safe in them and everything else, but they're not at all a desirable or attractive solution in the long run. They were never intended to be. They've served that purpose. And we'd like to put our program in a facility that we think is more appropriate to the educational mission we're trying to serve.
Thank you, Chris. Are there other questions, comments from either the Budget Committee or the School Board side on this Article number 2? Okay, we'll go on to Article number 3. To see if the school board will vote to raise and appropriate the sum not to exceed $1,650,000 for the purpose of purchasing land and authorize the withdrawal of up to $1 million from the capital reserve fund created for that purpose, with the balance of $450,000 to be funded through open space funds and $200,000 from impact fees. This is recommended by the school board, and a majority vote is required. And it is noted that this article will not have an impact on taxes. Does anybody from the school board or the budget committee choose to comment at this time? Are there any questions from the floor? Are there any comments that anyone on either committee might like to make to those viewing this meeting at home?
Sure, Rod, if I may. We are not suggesting through this warrant article that we are going to spend $1.65 million to appropriate land. That is simply the maximum amount of money that is available to us at this time through these various either other warrant articles, other bond issues, I should say, from the open space bond, from impact fees, or from our reserve accounts. We've utilized this sort of not to exceed number at the specific suggestion of the budget committee. We heard it at the last budget committee meeting. We've adopted that suggestion and have plugged it in here. So I don't want people at home to think that this is the either minimum or maximum. This is just the amount of money that we will spend or could spend for land. We anticipate that this will be enough, and with any luck, more than enough. But this is simply the amount of money that we have to expend without impacting the tax rate at this time.
Thank you, Chris. Yes, I do remember we had a joint school board and budget committee meeting, and there was not a sum of money in this sum not to exceed in the beginning. And after some discussion and careful thought, we thought it would allow those in negotiation the greatest flexibility to go ahead and to meet the needs of the community if we identified the sum of money that could be accessed without tax impact. So the number is there more for guidance and out of respect to the negotiating committees that are trying to find a solution that will meet all of the community's needs. I have a note here that open spaces. Deb, I think this is the place that you would like some clarification on the legality. So I'll see if I can't find that from a resource and get it to you timely. I'll make that request. And you're at 231 South Main, so I can get in touch with you there. Okay. Are there any other comments in regards to Article 3? It's I have to take a minute and talk to the television audience, because it's a fair question that Deb has asked, and I'm at a loss on the answer that I get and I share with Deb. I will do my very best to make that answer a public answer for everybody to see. And so I might ask for the cooperation of the newspaper reporters that are here, and if you'd be so kind as to leave your name and how to contact you, I would respond. I'd give you the same response that Deb gets, so that that question can at least be out there for everybody to be able to hear the answer. Is that fair?
Mr. Bowles, may I speak to that, please?
Yeah.
For the last at least 2.5 years, we have been meeting, the school department has been meeting with members of the Open Space Committee, because a warrant was drafted and passed at a town meeting that specifically indicated that land would be purchased. The warrant article was for $2 million, And the purpose of that warrant article was for recreation and school use. And that warrant article passed by the body of Newmarket citizens. And we have been working in collaboration with them. And to date, the town council has already approved the expenditures of funds from open space in order for us to comply with the work that needs to be done on the purchase of land. So I think it's very clear that the community, when they passed that warrant article for land, had in mind open space, recreation, and for the future use of the school department.
And that's why I said there's no doubt in our mind that the use of this money for this purpose is legal.
And I don't doubt it either. It's a question on the table, and I just thought
In addition, just for clarification this evening, our warrant articles have already been reviewed by legal counsel and have passed the muster, if you will, in terms of being appropriately presented to the community.
And that's very helpful. Maybe that will, in fact, be the response, Deb. But I wanted to address the question that was fielded and deal with it in a forthright manner. And thank you for the clarification. I'm not even aware, and thinking back to all of the work that's been done in the preceding years. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. Other questions on Article number 3? Okay, Article number 4. To see if the school district will vote to approve the cost item included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Newmarket School Board and the Newmarket Teachers Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits. Year 2007 to 2008, this is an estimated increase of $284,742. Year 2008 to 2009, an estimated increase of $275,170, and year 2009 to 2010, an estimated increase of $285,120, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $284,742 for the 2007-2008 year. Such sum represents the additional costs attributable to the increases in salaries and benefits over those of the appropriation at the current staffing levels paid in the prior fiscal year. This is recommended by the school board and requires a majority vote. Are there anybody on the school board side that would like to?
Well, people get tired of hearing my voice, but I will speak again since I was on the negotiating team for the teacher's contract. We anticipate that these estimated increases are actually overly pessimistic and that the actual increases will be less than the figures represented here. The contract was reached after, I don't know, about 2 months, I would say around 2 months of negotiations without the benefit of any outside representatives on either side, without having to go to mediation. A very reasonable contract that serves what we believe to be the interests of the school district and the interests of the teachers mutually. In any agreement, there has to be compromise. There has to be people ideally would leave the table equally happy or equally unhappy, as the case may be. In this case, I think each party gave a little and got a little. And we are conscious as we enter into these contracts, we try to look ahead to how we are posturing ourselves for the next round of negotiations. We are very conscious of the need to maintain a high standard of education in the district, which requires continuing to hire the type of high-quality personnel that we currently have, because we have No Child Left Behind and other mandates that we have to meet. We have the expectations of the community to respond to. So really, all aspects of our mission statement are tied up in our teacher contract negotiations, and we have to be conscious of all those things. We think that this agreement fairly and reasonably addresses all of those needs, and as I said, I think the estimated increases are overly pessimistic. So I think they, even on the face of it, though, that it serves the interests of the community in maintaining a reasonable restraint on spending.
Thank you, Chris. Other questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
Rick Thayer, 332 Grant Road, and I also teach in the district. The effect on me of this contract increase is minimal. I'm concerned, and I have to listen to what Chris just said. It's not just acquiring new staff, it's retaining quality staff that we have. And as some of us folks eventually retire from this business, we hope that we have new folks coming in. We want to be able to attract those people and have an attractive contract with other people in the area. And this allows that. This doesn't pass, and I ask the budget committee to really consider it, then now all of a sudden, we're not going to be able to attract the kind of folks that we need. And again, we lose staff through retirement, attrition, or whatever kind of leaving you want to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
I may have left out, Rod, I'm sorry. A couple of the specifics. What you have built into the salary schedule already in place is a 3.5% increase from year to year. And there's 15 steps total in the contract. So if you factor in the 3.5% that's built in, I think the first year's increase is 5.5%, second year is 5%, third year is 5%. And then we had to make some other adjustments to the way compensation works for those teachers who are already on the top step, who are already at year 15 or higher. So those are the numbers, but that 5.5% includes that 3.5% that's built in. So it's 2%, 1.5%, 1.5% on top of that structure that was already in place. And I forgot to mention those specifics, so thank you for the chance to
Well, thank you,
say
Chris. Are there any questions from the Budget Committee side? Any questions, comments from the floor? I do have, I think, a couple of quick questions, if I may. I guess if you compare this contract to the other schools in the area, our new hires, does the new contract allow us to be competitive enough so that, if Greg's saying that it's important that we be able to offer a living wage to those coming in, to those that are in the middle of the year and those at the end, I'm just wondering on a rough statement, what does our contract do for our school?
That's a good point, and that's something that we looked very carefully at, and that was certainly our goal. And we feel that, that not only are we competitive across the state, but also in the Rockingham County area. So we definitely kept that in mind and compared our salaries with those not only in the whole state, but in Rockingham County as well. And I would say that we're right in the middle on both counts. So,
thank you very much. I know it's a tough question to answer, but thank you.
Rod, can I add one more thing? I was just handed this evening an article from the Concord Monitor, today's paper, saying that after 6 months of negotiations, the Newfound Regional School District has reached an impasse, and they're too late to get on their warrant, even if they get a contract agreement this year. So they're going to be operating without a contract unless they get a special meeting. And we know the teacher contracts have failed in Nottingham and Dover in the recent past. We think it does a disservice to the community to reach an impasse, and we appreciate the good efforts of the teachers to come to an agreement in fairly expeditious fashion, because we think it has an effect on morale and the community's opinion of the schools, and we're grateful for the opportunity to bring a contract forward. So I ask folks to bear this kind of information in mind. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chris. Are there other comments, questions about article number 4? Yes.
As I understand it, part of the negotiations were also around healthcare accounts or a healthcare provider for the district. Can you guys elaborate a little bit on what went on with respect to healthcare for increased costs or decreased costs in the contract?
Certainly. And I think you're referring specifically to health insurance and the percentage paid by the staff versus the town. Is that what you're referring to? Currently, the staff contributes 10% of the total health benefits, and the town pays 90%. And what this new contract will bring to the table is that current staff will continue to pay 10% and the town will pay the 90%, but new staff will now pay 15% and the town will pay 85%. So we, as everyone knows, healthcare costs are a major dilemma across the country, and something that we've been working very carefully to look at every year. Every year we have a health benefits committee that meets and receives information from the different healthcare providers or health benefits providers, and we do compare, contrast, and make recommendations to the teachers in terms of whether or not we want to switch providers, which we did last year and saved quite a bit of money for the district. So it's something that's very much on our minds and on the teachers' minds as well. We need to, again, as Greg pointed out, in order to attract and retain quality educators, we need to make sure that we are competitive with what we offer to our staff, and we feel that even at the 85-15 split, we're still very competitive, and in some cases offering a better package than some of the surrounding districts. Hope that answers your question.
Is there a savings incurred by going to or by using a particular healthcare provider?
Absolutely.
I'm gonna, excuse me, I'm gonna have to ask you, Bob, to use the microphone so we don't lose your question.
Do you want me to?
For the
I will. Bob asked if what the savings was from switching to the new healthcare provider, and that dollar amount was, Sue?
Roughly $165,000.
Roughly $165,000 for the past year. So, yeah, it was a significant savings, and it's something, again, that we will look at every year, comparing the different vendors in the area. So, something that we're definitely keeping an eye on.
You want to speak to wellness program?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that one of the places that we earmarked some of that money that saved was providing a wellness program to our staff. We have things. We have yoga classes. We've done screenings, walking club, biking club, etc. So, not only are we saving the money, but we're trying to provide different programs that will in turn help keep them healthier and hopefully keep our costs down in the long run.
I think there was an article in the paper about the wellness programs just this past week. Wasn't there? Didn't you do an article on that? No, someone did.
It is in the New Exeter newsletter.
It's in the New Exeter newsletter.
In fact, I think Mr. Thompson sort of leads the first paragraph somewhere there.
Yes. The wellness program is very popular with the staff, as I understand it.
Hearing no further discussion, we can move to Article 5. to see if the district, if Article 4 is defeated, will authorize the school board to call one special meeting at its option to address Article 4 cost items only. Recommended by the school board, majority vote required. Article 5. Yes.
I personally believe that this article does not call for an appropriation, therefore budget committee should not be voting on it. The only articles that the budget committee is supposed to act on is articles that calls for an appropriation. This item does not call for an appropriation. If you read RSA 32, specifically specifies that we would vote on articles that require an appropriation.
And thank you, Leo. And for purposes of the meeting, it is presented as a warrant article, and so for those at home, for those that have come to this meeting, for those on the school board that might like to talk to the warrant article, I think it's important to have an open conversation about it. Is there any conversation that would be appropriate to have around Article 4?
May I make a comment?
Sure.
The only comment I have to make on it is that should the teacher's contract fail, this would give the school board an opportunity to go back to the bargaining table, meet with negotiators from the Teachers Association, and try to hammer out a new package, which then this article would provide an opportunity for everyone to come back, and it would only be a discussion around those monetary items that would affect the bottom line of the budget. So this does protect the bargaining process, if you will, between the school district and the Teachers Association.
And thank you. That's my understanding also, is that a lot of people have worked really hard to come up with a contract for 3 years. If we did not vote Article 5 as a community, there would not be a way to easily get back before the taxpayers to vote just the monetary package of the contract. It could be pretty difficult to go to the state and ask for permission for a special meeting to vote on the teacher's contract, of all this hard work of both the negotiating team and the team of school board members who work so hard to come to an agreement, a working agreement on compensation for the next 3 years. So, yes, that's my understanding of Article 5.
I have no problem with Article 5. I think Article 5 is perfectly legal as it is. It just does not require budget committee approval.
Yeah, and I'm not even, that we can talk about that after the meeting when we sit to have the budget committee meeting. And I note your comment and I appreciate it and your reference to the RSA. But I wanted at least it to be clear, from what I understand, is other communities have found themselves to be in difficult times when people have worked hard for a contract and they have left this article off the warrant articles. A further conversation? And no further conversation, questions. I'll go on to Article 6. To see if the school district will vote to approve 2/5, 40% of any June 30th, 2007 fund balance surplus up to $100,000 to be added to the expansion of school facilities capital reserve fund. Recommended by the school board, majority vote required on Article 6. Would the school board care to comment?
I could speak to that, Chris, or Rod, I'm sorry.
Oh, sure, Cliff.
This and the two warrant articles following are very similar to what's been on the warrant for the last couple of years, for at least a couple of them. What they offer is a place to put any surplus funds left in the budget at year end, in order to provide for future future needs. In the case of Article 6, this one is for what we've been talking about with the first few warrant articles, expanding of school facilities, and I'm forgetting now the balance on this warrant article. It's $1 million. I was going to guess, but I don't like to do that. So this one is the majority, if you will, of these three. It's 2/5 of that total, and again, it's to offset future school expansion needs.
Thank you, Cliff. Questions from Bob? Thank you for coming to the mic.
It's a Greg's asked question, what is left over in the budget? And could you tell me about your diligent work to preserve the budget and work hard and to have these funds left over to appropriate into these other capital reserve funds?
That's a great question. Obviously, if there's money left in the budget, one wonders why. This occurs in a number of ways. One of the first ones is unanticipated revenues. Example, last year we had increased revenue from our Medicaid funds. We also had an additional increase in our IDEA funds, which are our federal funds. And so those are unanticipated and remain in the fund balance at the end of the year. In addition, as we try to project what our student needs will be, especially as it relates to students who may need specific learning programs, that sometimes is a difficult call when we're trying to anticipate 18 months prior to the budget actually becoming a working document. And so there are times when we have had money left in the tuition account for out-of-district placement. This year, we may see some savings, and I'll knock on wood that our heating bill stays down, although tonight certainly isn't a good example, but given the warm weather, those are the kinds of places, Bob, that we may see some extra funds at the end of the year. For the most part, the supplies, the salary accounts, they're down pretty close to what we would expend towards the end of the year. On occasion, you may have a teacher leave in the middle of the year, maternity leave, leave of absence, and you replace that teacher with someone who isn't have as many years of experience, so there's some savings there. So all in all, those are the areas that, as a rule, we pick up some funds at the end of the year. I don't know if that answered your question.
Anticipated fund balance?
For this year, right now, January 17th, $150,000. And thanks, Sue's giving me this information. Sue really should be answering this question, but it is health insurance, which Linda alluded to, with a significant savings when the teachers agreed to move over to a new health plan.
I think it's important to observe also that this $1 million balance was built up over a period of 15 to 20 years that this warrant article has been in place. So it's not like we built up $1 million over 2 years. It's over a long period of time.
If I may, just the other thing I think it's important to keep in mind is we're going to deal with the same type of question 3 more times, just for different topical areas than capital improvement. And it is through use of this technique, if you will, that the board over the last several years has managed to, sort of level out the dips and the valleys and the mountains that can happen as you develop budgets and conditions change. When some of these savings accounts are available, if an unexpected need arises, you can use some of the savings account rather than automatically look to increase the budget and increase the tax rate to pay for those things. Working with when I was at one of the budget committee meetings, and I think just through that philosophy, we moved, close to $50,000 into these that would have been in the budget and on the tax rate, just using that sort of philosophy. So putting aside the leftover allows you to sort of even out, the increases over time, so that we're not hit with these large spikes when something unintended comes up. If a $200,000 roof has to go on a school building, and if you don't have these reserves, that's a $200,000 increase to your budget for that particular year, as an example. And roofs are usually the largest, catastrophic kind of event that sort of happens in your facilities. So, just to comment that, using the savings account for what they're intended for, I think actually benefits the taxpayer in the long term. I think there has been some discussion also that we don't want to see these accounts just continue to grow into perpetuity. There's going to be some point where we say, okay, this year we don't want to do that warrant article to save that percentage, because we've reached a reasonable amount in that account.
Thank you.
I just have a quick question. As you said, the other three articles, if you add up all of the surplus potentials, there's $250,000 that can go into these accounts. What happens if the surplus is $300,000? What happens to that $50,000 number?
That gets offset on the tax rate. That will go into the unanticipated fund balance account.
So it helps us reduce our taxes in the
Right.
next year?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there other comments? Are there other comments? We're all set? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to Article number 7, if I haven't lost track, to see if the school district will vote to appropriate 1/5, 20% of any June 30th, 2007 fund balance surplus up to $50,000 to be added to the capital reserve fund under RSA 35:1-B for the purpose of educationally disabled children, recommended by the school board, majority vote required. Any specific comments to this? I know we've talked in good general terms about the purpose of these quote-unquote savings accounts that help us to avoid unexpected expenditures and large swings in the tax rate. Surprises, I call them. We call them surprises at home. That's when the water goes through the ceiling roof in the daughter's bedroom and you have to put a new roof on.
The personal experience?
Personal experience.
I think what I'm going to do is ask Cliff to address, and for each one of these, just to tell us what the current balance is and what we anticipate the accounts being capped at.
Sure. So Article 7 is, as was outlined, having something set aside for a catastrophic need. If all of a sudden the school district has the burden that was unanticipated in special education expenses, the balance of this account, I believe, is $100,000, and the expectation is to increase that to 250, approximately. Was that 200?
200.
And at that point in time, if we are as fortunate as we'd hope, that balance would remain steady until, we would no longer include an article such as this until that was then depleted, I suppose. And one more thing I'd like to add is that this language of these three articles is the idea was a recommendation, I believe, from the budget committee from a few years back, and I personally think that was a great idea.
Well, thank you. I think Mr. Coffey was probably one of the prime movers on that article and that concept for, and Article 7. Are there further questions, conversation around Article 7? We all set? Yes, Chet.
You're saying at this time, Cliff, there's $100,000 in this
That's right.
fund balance.
Mhm.
Is that money being invested where interest is accumulated?
Sue, can you speak to that?
The monies are in the trust fund handled by the trustee of the trust funds. So the actual balance right now is about 102,000. It does accrue interest, and the
Goes back
trustee,
into that particular fund balance?
it goes into that account. They all have, we have separate accounts set up for each individual fund.
So in Article 7's account, you're about $102,000 right now.
Right. As of December 31st.
And thank you. And other questions? And so let me just make sure that I understand. All of the fund balances, Articles 6, 7, 8, and 9, are being held in the community's trust fund account, which I believe, I'm going to forget his name, who's
Ed Pelzar.
Ed Pelzar is the trustee of that fund and has that earning interest. And if I may, I'd like to back up to Article 6. Chris, you had asked Cliff to share with us the current balance and if there was any idea of what the cap might be. Is that information available on Article 6?
The current balance is around $1 million, but there's been no discussion of capping this fund at this point because it's in the nature of a capital reserve fund that it's sooner or later you're going to find a use for it.
Okay. Let me ask the tough question that should this community of Newmarket go ahead with the campus plan over the next 2 to 3 years, and probably an unfair question, would you envision how would you envision this capital reserve fund to be managed after buildings were in place and property was, the playgrounds and sufficient land was in place for educating the children?
Speaking only for myself, I wouldn't anticipate ever removing this from the warrant because sooner or later, and it may be much later, you're going to have a capital need for the district. And whether it's in 10, 15, 20, or 50 years, I personally, the school board hasn't discussed it because this is the first time I've heard the suggestion raised.
I'm sorry. Sorry for asking that.
I wouldn't anticipate ever doing this. I think this is just responsible fiscal management, in my opinion. I'm looking to see if I'm getting a strong negative from anybody, but I think this is it's $1 million and after 20 years, and now we have it and we can do stuff with it. And if the community chooses, not to expend the money, not to expend the funds, that's fine. But I think it's just smart fiscal management.
And thank you. Are there any comments from the, yes, Chet?
On Article 7, since this article was introduced and voted in by the district, the voters of the community, has any of that money ever been used since it's been in effect? No. Has it ever been?
The answer is no. We've been able to meet our special education obligations out of our budgeted funds. So
if I may, I think that the thing to keep in mind is you can experience very easily a single family moving into your district, into our town, that brings with them a special needs child that we don't anticipate because they're not on the radar screen yet. And my experience has seen individual students cost $100,000 to educate in a year. Now that is an extreme case, but as we all know, there are situations that do take place like that. So while we haven't accessed it, we also perhaps have not had that catastrophic occurrence as of yet, but it's our own insurance policy against such an action.
Everybody else set? Thank you. And thank you, Chet. That was Article 7. And thank you, Chris, for the tough question that I surprised you with. I happen to agree with you, but just thank you. We've got Article number 8, to see if the school district will vote to appropriate 1/5, 20% of any June 30th, 2007 fund balance up to $50,000 to be added to the expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of repairs and maintenance of school facilities recommended by the school board, majority vote required. And Cliff, I guess you'll...
Sure. The current balance in that account is approximately $100,000 with interest added. This is for the purpose of things that Forrest mentioned earlier. If the roof fails, the furnace boiler in one of the buildings fails, that's a large number that would potentially tank our current year's budget. So this gives us the opportunity to have something ready for that. Further, there are some things that we're looking to do in this current year, or in our next year.
Current budget.
Right, in this current budget cycle, we're looking at of doing some repair work into some of the restroom facilities in both school buildings. And with this, we are once again helping to smoothen out the bumps, if you will, in the operating budget by utilizing some of these monies that we already have, that the taxpayers have already paid.
Thank you. Other questions? Comments? All set? All set?
What's the cap on 8?
We really haven't.
You don't have a cap on it?
Yet to be determined?
Right.
Okay.
I think what we would do, just as a for instance, though, is take the most recent cost of putting a roof in the elementary school, which was $160,000, put a reasonable cost escalator on that, projected out 20 years, and say that's at least where we'd like to be. So we don't have to go to the tax base. We have a building, you got to put a roof on it every 20 years or so, and that's just to give you a reasonable approximation, Gary. That's probably, we would go about it in that kind of analytical way. It's probably gives you a sense of where we would do this. This would probably be higher than a $200,000 cap, I would guess.
Other questions, comments? Thank you. Article 9, to see if the school district will vote to appropriate 1/5, 20% of any June 30th, 2007 fund balance surplus up to $50,000 to be added to the expendable trust fund under the provisions of RSA 198:20-C for the purpose of purchasing technology equipment. Equipment includes replacing computers at the junior senior high school and at the elementary school, printers and additional equipment and software for classroom and administrative use, recommended by the school board, majority vote required. The school board have anyone that would like to talk to that?
Rod, I want to back up to number 8 and then take number 8 and number 9 together for just a second. I forgot to mention, in terms of the repairs and maintenance of school facilities, that we have a capital improvement plan, a maintenance plan in place that we've, that came together through a lot of effort. I know it's something that way back when I sat on the budget committee, something that frustrated me, but it's something that has since been addressed. And so we do have a plan in place to address these issues, and this helps to fund some of those items, and as far as suggested, take it off the tax rate. Similarly, with Article 9, which is about computers and software, we have a district-wide technology plan that was required by law, really, and our plan has been approved by the Department of Education, the State Department of Education, and So again, expenditures are tied to a plan and are not just done. It's there for emergencies and it's great. It's also tied to a plan that's very thoroughly and carefully worked up. And so we don't want people to think that we're just going along higgledy-piggledy. With that being said, Cliff.
Thank you, Chris. The current balance in that fund is approximately $50,000, and there really hasn't been, I don't recall, a lot of discussion on where that cap would be in my recollection. So this is to account for the unanticipated computer server failure and or other technology equipment. For example, there's part of, as Chris spoke about the technology plan, there is some new technology available, which is a pretty exciting teaching tool, known as the Smartboard. And it is our intention to utilize some of these monies to help us get some of those units into our schools without impacting the operating budget.
Did you have an opportunity to see the Smartboard in action?
Well, I believe it was at the budget school board hearing at the elementary school, and I forget the young lady's name who demonstrated it.
Deb Boatwright.
Deb Boatwright.
It's pretty nifty gee whiz technology.
Well, the thing that I noticed during that presentation was that it actually facilitated the conversation of the two committees and our learning of the budget. It actually facilitated our understanding of how the tool would enhance the educational experience and really supplement curriculum. So at least that's my short
Kathy, can you just
take
explain
on
to
it.
people at home basically what this thing is and how it works? Or Forrest, maybe you have experience using one, I don't know.
No, go ahead, Forrest.
When we went to school, they had chalkboards, and the teacher stood in front of the chalkboard and wrote information down, and you copied it into your notes, and you studied it and took your tests. About, well, I don't know, 15 years ago, we went to whiteboards. So the teacher, when the social studies teacher passed away, he didn't have 10 pounds of chalk dust on the bottom of his lungs. And
Good old days.
and this was good, and that's an actual true story.
But you digress.
Technology has brought us a way to interact with the information now, so that students can actually use a whiteboard and an LCD projector and a computer to interact with the information, to interact with the teacher. Such a way that as they go up, for example, they may put a math problem on the board, and it is recording it for them, it's printing notes, it's doing different things such as that, but it's also interacting with the computer, and the computer is actually telling them whether they are correct or not. As one example of a program that we saw with the budget committee on a Saturday morning. It's a wonderful interactive tool. It allows students to interact with technology in a meaningful way, and in a way that they are going to interact with in the real world. Smartboards and LCD projectors and PowerPoint presentations and various media have become the center point of many, many, many jobs, and important tool for our kids to become familiar with and comfortable with.
So we've utilized, so in this budget, we're proposing to utilize this fund to purchase 5 Smartboards for which building?
Both.
Both.
Both. We're
5
gonna
for
split
each
it.
building.
No, we're going to split it, I don't know, 3 in one and 2 in the other, but a
Okay.
total of 5.
So that's money that doesn't, we don't have to get that out of the tax base.
That's
We're
right.
utilizing this fund,
That's right.
and it's part of the technology plan.
As another point of conversation on Article 9, for those at home who have access to the school website, the technology plan is posted there. If you really have any question, there's a drawing that will allow you to have the beginning of a glimpse of what this would look like when it's completed. It's got lines and boxes on it. Stands for computers and how they communicate with each other. I don't know a better way of describing it, but it's an invitation to go to the school district website if you're curious about the plan and to take a look at it. It's part of what you're funding as a member of the community. I'd probably get shot for wondering if the presentations that we taxpayer dollars have paid for, if they could find their way to the website also, if there were something of interest that people might be able to look at and talk with their neighbors about, so that they can understand the thoroughness with which our community over the years. I've lived in Newmarket. This is a short editorial. I'm very proud to live in Newmarket. I came here in 1972. This is 2007. I too am at times caught unaware of the changes because they're so rapid and they come from so many different directions now. This idea of being able to go to a website and look at things is attractive to me because I can do it when I am laying awake at night and I don't have anything to do. I can't get to sleep and I don't want to read a book. So thank you very much for making those things available. The technology plan, I happen to think, is credible, and one of the things that we saw when the Budget Committee was invited to tour, and I'm sure contact the principal of the elementary school if you're interested in a Linux network and a pod study area within the classroom where all the children in the classroom can come and work in today's technology on their learning, but also become familiar with these tools they're going to see on the outside, and contact the principal of the high school. The same. Technology is part of our world, and if we don't embrace it in our curriculum, we're going to leave our children short when they step out into the world and try to make a living. End of advertisement. Any other questions on Article 9? Everybody's been so gracious. I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to come to the microphone, to ask the questions, to say the things that you'd like to say. That's why you come to a public meeting that has a television camera that beams everything into the homes so that your voice is heard. Article 10, to see if the school district will raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth herein, totaling $13,134,525. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $12,950,889, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Newmarket School District or by law. Or the school board may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13X and X5(1), I guess that's 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only, recommended by the school board, majority vote required. Note, this warrant article operating budget does not include appropriations in any other warrant article. Questions, comments by the school board, from the school board?
I'll get things started if I may. First of all, don't you just love the language? Wow.
Sitting next to a lawyer, I dare not make a comment.
First of all, this budget is the culmination of a lot of hard work by the administrative staff in both buildings as well as the district office. So thank you to them as well as the budget committee in all of the input they've put in along the way. The budget is the net increase is 2.1%. From the prior year, and if I may, I think I'd like to ask Sue to, help interpret on page number 8 in the packet that you were handed. There's an itemization of what the highlights are in that budget.
Well, basically, I just outlined the two different budgets, compared the budget and the default budget, given you the increases in both, and then what the increase is made up of. We talked about the 2.1%, which is roughly $275,000, and I've outlined those increases down below there. As far as the tax rate goes, should everything come through as far as revenue estimates, we're looking at 16 cents on the tax rate. I think that's pretty much it when you talk about the operating budget. Any questions, comments? Sure. I can speak about some of the increases, that the 275,000. Although, as you notice down there, there is more than $275,000 listed, because we did have the benefit of retiring a bond. So you will see that 500,000. It adds up to roughly 500,000. We've added, and it doesn't impact the tax rate, 50,000 to the food service budget. There's additional staff in our budget, a couple of positions. I'm trying to think of where we added staff. Can go on to that later. Retirement, I'm sure you've read a lot about that. The rate for retirement has increased substantially. That's roughly $170,000. Linda spoke about the wellness initiative. There's a cost of $15,000 to support that. Just general benefits and salary increases for non-union positions are in there. Obviously, we've anticipated an increase in our oil costs, and then some miscellaneous increases that are included in that budget, operating budget. Any questions? Anything you want me to elaborate on? I'll go into more detail when we get to the deliberative session, if you'd like.
Other questions? Question from the Budget Committee? Questions from the audience? Well, if there's, thank you to Deb for taking the minutes. Appreciate that. Again, I'd like to invite any of the viewers at home, stop in the third floor, pick up a draft of warrant articles on 2007 to 2008 with the attachments for anybody who has interest. Also, the presentations are up there in the office and hopefully on the website, so you'll get a chance to take a look at them. Bob is very polite to remind me that I would be remiss if I didn't extend an invitation to everybody at home to come here on February the 6th, 7 o'clock, for the first deliberative session where we gather to discuss the budget of the school district, which will be presented here, February the 6th, right? Pardon?
I don't think we'll fit.
We won't.
The session last year, we had just about filled the cafeteria at the elementary school,
Did we?
right? Am I wrong? Good attendance.
Thank you. I probably was at work, and I should have been there.
We spent most of it talking about you, Ron.
You didn't talk very long. There's not much to talk about. So this is an important conversation. This is an important conversation.
My recollection holds, the public hearings were held at the high school, one for the bond and one for the budget, but the deliberative session was held here in order to film it live.
Okay. We're going to talk about this further, and until further notice, please plan to be here February the 6th for the first deliberative session. And I think we're being called to challenge. Bob's saying, let's fill the room. Let's make it a full house. So everybody's invited, and thank you very much. And is there any other business to come before the community? Do we have anybody, the Budget Committee, have anything while we have them? Does school board have any
your
closing
meeting.
comments? Well, then, thank you very much, everyone, and we thank everybody for coming, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome. Thank you, Chris. Get the best way to get back to Deb.
We gotta vote on these articles.
Yeah, if we can just plan as a budget committee to, real quick, we'll go through these, and in, not real quick, we'll do